Grace and peace to you and your family. I want to encourage us in this video that God is on your side. It doesn't matter what you may be dealing with right now. And I know sometimes within our lives, we feel alone. And that's a lie of the enemy, because he always makes us feel like nobody understands, that we in this thing by ourselves, and to the point that he'll even want us to keep it silent. He wants us to feel as if you tell anybody, they're going to begin to make fun of you, or you should be above that. How in the world did you let that happen to you? But I'm here to encourage us today that if God be for me, and I know that he's for me, you got to own it today. You got to say out of your own mouth, if God be for me, who is it that's going to be against me? Now, we do understand we have enemies. We already stated, the word already stated that we're going to have enemies in this life. But he said, regardless of the enemies that you have against you, who is for you? And when you and I know that God is for us, then there's no need to worry. There is no need to fear. There's no need to feel, woe is me. There's no need to feel as we've been forsaken and forgot. There is no need to feel any of that. Let us read this together, okay? But this time I want you to own it. I want you to own it. I'm owning that thing. I had to stand up with my feet planted on the ground, with my hands on my hip and my backbone slipped. And sometimes you got to say, you know what? Irregardless of what's coming against me, God is for me. And it doesn't matter if I got some likes on my Facebook. It doesn't matter if somebody beginning to cheer me on. It really doesn't matter. Why? Because God is for me. Let's look at this. Romans 8 is powerful in itself. It got a lot of nuggets. You need to go back later on and you begin to speak these things to yourself. You got to own it this time. Romans 8:31, the word of God says this: what should we then say to these things? That's a question. If God be for us, who can be against us? Now, I'm going to own it for myself. You got to own it. If God be for me, who can be against me? Now, we understand that things gonna oppositions and challenges. He never said that it would not come. He said, but if he's for us, these oppositions and challenges, we already know they are defeated. They already defeated. He says, what shall we then say to these things? What things? If you go up and look at Romans 8, he says already there is no condemnation to those that are in Christ. We up here feeling forsaken and forgotten. We feeling like we want to throw in the towel. You may have fallen short. You may have missed the mark, because we all have. He said this. He says, if God be for you, pick up your feet, get back in this race, keep your focus on. Listen, we're going to take some hits in this life, but I already said before, and I'm going to say it again. The fall is not the end of it. You get back up and you square your shoulders back and you say out of your own mouth, if God be for me. He said to these things. What other things he said? He said all things gonna work together for the good. He says, listen, you may be in a situation even right now that it doesn't even seem like this is even making sense. Living in this life, the things that we deal with, honey, they don't make any sense. Oh, please trust me. I understand. It don't make no sense. And it seems like, God, if you are for me, why you allow this and why you allow, we often say that. But he says in this life, we're going to have a trust factor to understand that he's on our side. And one thing I love about God, he always pick a winning team. Ooh, you are on the winning side because God is for you. Look at your own life, even right now. Take a moment of reflection. Begin to think about some of the things that you've been through, things that you're in right now, situations that have went crazy within your life. And if you look back then and you begin to think about it now, it was because God carried us when we couldn't even go ourselves. It was the goodness and the mercy of God that he has given us. It's that thing he said is so amazing. He called it his grace. He said, my grace is sufficient to take you to pay, to begin to give you whatever you need. That thing called grace. And one of the things I love about the grace of God, we did nothing to earn it, nor did we deserve it, but he gave it to you anyway. So you got to begin to own some things, and you got to begin to say this out of your own mouth. If God be for me. There's a lot of times people have come in our lives and we call them our best friend. We even call them family members. We call them pastors, teachers, whatever we may call them. And sometimes relationships go bad, doesn't it? But he said it doesn't even matter. It ain't about what went bad, because he already said all things gonna work together. What's going on good? He said you got to understand that I'm on your side. And all of us always want to be on a winning side. But if God got our back, then he got our back. And we got to begin to stand with that. There are some challenges in all of our lives. And he already said that. He used the word, he said, you're going to go through tribulations. But he said, be of good cheer. Oh, that's a big statement all by itself. He said, you're going to go through life crisis and situation. You're going to go through ups and downs, winding roads. You're going to go through pitfalls. You're going to go through some things. But he said, please keep in mind, Paul began to pen this, and I'm grateful that Paul penned it, because nobody can say it with such a surety but this man that was getting ready to be persecuted. This man executed. This man that went through so many things. But Paul said this. Paul began to say this out of his own mouth, and he shared it with us. He says, listen, y'all over here looking with your lips all poked out, feeling like, woe is me, feeling some type of way. He said, but I want you to understand, if God be for you, oh, you may not pass that test. But don't, come on now, because God is for you. You and I got to begin to hold on to that. If God be for me. And I had to think about that thing within my own life. It's like, wait a minute. Well, I'm getting upset because things ain't go the way I wanted to go. God got my back, and he knows all things. What I need to do is align myself back with his promises. He left us some great promises. When it seems like it's not going your way, get your mind back in and say, you know what, God, I don't understand it, and I thought it was going to turn out like this, but nevertheless, it's turning out like this way. Understand that when we begin to cast that thing before God, when we begin to invite God in, we need to get intellect out of the way. Too many times intellect, looking at things through darkened lenses, because y'all know we can only see what's ahead of us. We know that in our thought processes, sometimes we have conflicts even against God, because God says this, listen, when you begin to let your mind thoughts begin to try to navigate your life, that's going to be a conflict. He already said that the carnal mind is enmity with God. We need to begin to not think of things in our natural abilities and begin to look at things as supernatural abilities, knowing that God already predestined. Even it talks about this. He says, verse 30, moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called, and whom he also called, them he also justified. Whom he justified, them he also glorified. Come on now. When you begin to look at what he says about you and the things he says about me, you got to know that you know that God is for you. It doesn't matter how it stacks. It doesn't matter how it feels. It doesn't matter the season of life that you're in, because I look at that in every season, there's going to be a season for everything. But in the midst of everything within the season, you better know that God is for you. And if anybody telling you other than what you know to be true, you got to say, devil, I ain't going to believe that. I'm not going to look at it how it appears out of my sight. I'm not going to look at conditions and circumstances and situations and to determine if where I need to be. I'm going to look at what God says about it. Paul says, if God be for us, you got to ask yourself, if God be for us, he said, what should we then say to these things? What are these things in your life? Is it your finances? Is it relationship woes? Is it sickness? He said, what should we then say to these things? I need you to get a pen and a paper, and I want you to do what I'm going to do. Get a pen and a paper before I end this video. Come on now. I need you to see some things. Write down these things. What is it in your life that has been happening to make you feel like you failed, that you defeated? What is it within your life, that tribulations that have come and it seems like you're not going to make it? Write those things down. And once you write those things down, you begin to hold those things up and you say, what should we then say to these things, whatever those things are? Your child is wayward. You're looking for a boo. You're looking for a baby. You've been in a situation that you're asking God to bless you, and it seems like your blessing haven't come. Write it down. And he said, what should we then say to these things? And then once you begin to write those things down, because you need to see it. You need to see it. You need to see it as you say it. And you say these things. And then at the end, he says this, if God be for us, oh my God, then I want you to take the very things you wrote down, and I want you to begin to say, if God be for us, who can be against us? Scratch a line through it. Finances, scratch a line through it. Relationship problem, scratch a line through it. Sickness, scratch a line through it. Situation, scratch a line through it. Circumstance, y'all got my feelings, you got my drift. Because you got to own it today. And you got to understand that God is on your side. And we already know that we already won. So I want to encourage us in this word, this video. Begin to trust what he's already said. And please understand, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter how it feels. It doesn't matter what's going on. You got to know that God is for you. Be encouraged, stay focused, and take your piece of paper. And remember, he said, if God be for me, I won already. Be encouraged. Until next time, God bless you.